He walked into his own company wearing simple clothes, no suit, no bodyguards, nothing flashy. The receptionist looked at him, the security guard stepped closer, and within seconds they told him, "You're not allowed here. Please leave." What they didn't know was that this man owned more of the company than everyone in the building combined. As he walked out in silence, one phone call changed everything. Moments later, the same people who ignored him came running, their faces pale with shock. Stay till the end, because this story proves that true power doesn't look the way you expect, and respect should never be based on appearance. The glass doors of Harrington Global Solutions opened smoothly as a black man in his early 40s stepped inside, carrying himself with quiet confidence. He wasn't dressed like the executives who usually filled the building. No tailored suit, no designer tie, no expensive watch flashing status. Just a simple dark jacket, clean shoes, and calm eyes that had seen far more boardrooms than battlefields. Employees rushed past him without looking twice, focused on their schedules, their phones, their deadlines. To them, he blended into the background, another outsider wandering into a world he didn't belong to. The man paused near the center of the lobby, looking up at the massive steel logo mounted proudly on the wall. Harrington Global Solutions. A small smile appeared on his face, one filled with memory, sacrifice, and long nights of risk no one here knew about. He walked toward the reception desk, where a young receptionist typed rapidly, barely glancing up. When she finally noticed him, her smile stiffened slightly, professional but distant. She asked if she could help him. The man replied calmly that he was there to see the executive team. Her fingers stopped moving. She asked if he had an appointment. He said not exactly, but they would know who he was. The receptionist's eyes quickly scanned him from head to toe, noticing what wasn't there instead of what was. She hesitated, then asked what department he was with, or if he was here for delivery or maintenance. The question carried an unspoken assumption. The man answered simply, asking her to tell them Ethan Cole was in the lobby. The name meant nothing to her. She apologized politely and said executives didn't meet without appointments. She then told him he wasn't authorized to be in the building and would need to leave. A nearby security guard turned his attention toward them, already forming a judgment without a word spoken. Around them, employees slowed their steps, some pretending not to stare, others openly curious. In that moment, Ethan Cole, one of the wealthiest men in the country and the silent force behind the company's survival, stood there being dismissed like he didn't belong. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, absorbing the familiar sting of being unseen, knowing this moment would reveal far more about the company than any board meeting ever could. The security guard approached with firm steps, positioning himself just close enough to feel intimidating. He asked if there was a problem, already assuming there was. The receptionist explained that the man wanted to see the executives but had no appointment. The guard looked Ethan up and down, his eyes lingering longer than necessary, his expression tightening. He said it was company policy, and that if Ethan didn't have official business, he would need to exit the building immediately. Ethan listened patiently, hands relaxed at his sides. Years ago, moments like this would have filled him with anger, but success had taught him control. He calmly replied that he did have business there. The guard crossed his arms and told him to schedule a meeting like everyone else. Whispers spread among nearby employees. Some shook their heads, convinced they were watching security handle a trespasser. Others avoided looking at Ethan altogether, uncomfortable but unwilling to question what they assumed was normal. None of them knew that 2 decades earlier, Harrington Global Solutions had been minutes away from bankruptcy. None of them knew that when banks refused to help and investors walked away, a young black entrepreneur named Ethan Cole had taken a risk no one else would. He had invested his entire fortune, not for recognition, but because he believed in the company's potential. Over the years, his stake grew quietly until he became the majority owner, choosing to stay behind the scenes while others took credit. Standing there now, Ethan represented everything they failed to imagine. The guard told him again to leave. Ethan nodded and said he would step outside, but asked that they make the call. The guard reluctantly agreed. As Ethan walked toward the exit, he felt eyes on his back, filled with judgment, pity, and quiet satisfaction. Outside the building, the city moved on, unaware of the test this company had just failed. Ethan took out his phone, his expression calm but resolved. He made a single call, one that would force the truth into the open. Inside those walls, assumptions ruled. Outside, reality was about to walk back in. On the top floor of the building, the executive team sat around a long glass table, arguing over profit margins and investor confidence. Tension filled the room as charts flashed red and voices overlapped. Suddenly, the CEO phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, and the color drained from her face. Without saying a word, she stood up so quickly, her chair scraped loudly across the floor. She told everyone the meeting was over, effective immediately. Confused executives looked at one another, asking what was wrong. She took a breath and said 4 words that changed the mood instantly. "Ethan Cole is here." Silence followed. One executive whispered, asking if she meant the Ethan Cole. She nodded, her voice tight, adding that he had been told to leave the building. Panic spread across the room. Questions exploded. How did this happen? Why wasn't he escorted upstairs? Who let this happen? No one had answers. The CEO grabbed her jacket and rushed toward the elevator, the rest following closely behind. Downstairs, the receptionist's phone rang. When she answered, the sharp voice of the CEO asked where Ethan Cole was. The receptionist stammered, saying he had been asked to leave. The CEO voice rose, demanding if she had any idea who that man was. The receptionist's hands began to shake. The security guard's radio crackled with urgent orders to bring Ethan back immediately. The lobby erupted into sudden chaos as executives poured out of the elevator, their polished confidence replaced with fear. Outside, Ethan stood calmly watching cars pass, the city indifferent to corporate power. The doors burst open as the CEO called his name, apologizing loudly and asking him to come back inside. The security guard froze. The receptionist covered her mouth, realization hitting like a wave. Ethan turned slowly, looking at the faces now filled with recognition and regret. He smiled softly and asked if they recognized him now. No anger filled his voice, only quiet truth. As he stepped back inside, the balance of power shifted without a single raised word. Inside the lobby, silence took over completely. Phones were lowered, conversations stopped, and every eye fixed on Ethan as the CEO stood beside him, visibly humbled. He announced to the entire floor that Ethan Cole was the company's majority owner and largest investor. Gasps rippled through the space. The receptionist felt dizzy, replaying every word she had spoken. The security guard stared at the floor, understanding too late what assumptions had cost. Ethan looked around slowly, taking in the faces of people who had walked past him moments earlier without a glance. He said he didn't come for apologies, but to understand the culture of the company his money had saved. He explained that policies without awareness turn into prejudice and protection without understanding becomes exclusion. His words weren't loud, but they carried weight heavier than shouting ever could. He spoke about boardrooms where he had been underestimated, deals where he was ignored, and rooms where respect was earned only after wealth was revealed. He told them that today, the company failed not because of rules, but because of mindset. Diversity statements on walls meant nothing without dignity in action. The executives stood motionless, knowing there was no argument to make. Ethan made it clear that change would begin immediately, not as punishment, but as responsibility. New training programs would focus on respect, leadership would be evaluated, and the company would be held to a higher standard than profit alone. This wasn't revenge, it was correction. The truth had been exposed, and it demanded response. The lobby, once a place of quiet judgment, became a mirror reflecting everything the company needed to confront. In the weeks that followed, Harrington Global Solutions changed in ways no press release could capture. The lobby felt different. People greeted each other with warmth instead of suspicion. Security was trained to protect with dignity. Receptionists were taught that authority doesn't always announce itself with appearance. The young woman at the desk kept her job, but her role expanded. She became part of the team that trained new hires on empathy, awareness, and respect. The security guard joined a leadership safety program, learning that real security starts with understanding. Ethan continued to visit the building without warning, dressed the same as before. No entourage, no announcement, but now the doors opened with genuine smiles. Employees didn't look at his skin or his clothes. They looked at his presence. His story became a lesson told quietly within the company, a reminder that wealth doesn't always wear a suit and power doesn't need to shout. Ethan never demanded recognition, but he earned something greater than apology: change. The company learned that respect should never be conditional, and judgment should never come before understanding. Long after that day, employees remembered the moment they almost sent greatness away simply because it didn't fit their expectations. And that lesson stayed, written not on walls, but in behavior, because true power doesn't announce itself, and those who truly belong never need permission to walk through the door.